All right, so graphing tangent graph. So y equals tangent x. Okay, just like sine and cosine, our x-axis is our angles and radians, and then the y-axis is the tangent of those angles. So we have this xy table. We can fill in some of the angles and their values. All right, so at 0 radians, the ordered pair 1, 0, and so we want to know the tangent of 0. All right, and so since it's 1, 0, the tangent is the y-coordinate divided by the x-coordinate. 0 divided by 1 would simplify to 0. So the tangent of 0 is 0. All right, pi over 4, that's at 45 degrees. The ordered pair is root 2 over 2, comma, root 2 over 2. And y divided by x. Since it's exactly the same values for x and y, simplify to 1. So tangent of pi over 4 is 1. Pi over 2, okay, that's at 90 degrees. The ordered pair is 0, 1. And so if we do y divided by x, 1 divided by 0, that's undefined. All right, undefined, there is no value. 3 pi over 4, okay, so that we're in quadrant 2 now. That's at 135 degrees. 3 pi over 4, the ordered pair is the same, okay, as pi over 4, except the signs are different. So that's going to get us negative 1. At pi, that's 180 degrees. The ordered pair is negative 1, 0. And when you do y divided by x, that's 0. All right, don't worry about that. It's already the same one. All right, so let's go ahead and plot these points real quick. 0, 0. Pi over 4, that's between 0 and pi over 2. So that would be this one right here, pi over 4. And that's at 1. Now, pi over 2 is undefined. And so when we have an undefined value, we put what's called an asymptote. Okay, asymptote. So it's a vertical dotted line. All right, then 3 pi over 4 is between pi over 2 and pi. So here's our 3 pi over 4. And its value is negative 1. So it's going to be right here. At pi, we're at 0. All right, let's put a couple more values in here so we can see. At negative pi over 4, that's the same as positive pi over 4, but the signs are different. All right, so that's going to be negative 1. At negative pi over 2, that's the same as positive pi over 2. That's undefined. Negative 3 pi over 4 is the same as positive 3 pi over 4, except the signs are different. Okay, so what do we have? Negative pi over 4. That's right there. And its value is negative 1. All right, negative pi over 2, it's undefined, so we have another asymptote. And negative 3 pi over 4, it's going to be positive 1. All right, so in between two asymptotes creates a graph. And so this is what the graph's going to look like. So this is what a tangent graph looks like. It's similar to the cubic that we did last semester, y equals x to the third. So it goes up on the right, down on the left. And then this goes on forever with the same pattern, so we can continue. Okay, every pi over 2 creates an asymptote. Go left also. Again, this goes on forever. All right, so the period is the horizontal distance between one cycle of the graph. So in between two asymptotes creates one cycle, or one period. Cycle. So the horizontal distance between negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2, that's going to be pi. Okay, the asymptotes are going to be at x equals negative pi over 2 and x equals positive pi over 2. Now, every pi over 2 So 3 pi over 2, negative 3 pi over 2 also create an asymptote. When we're stating what the asymptotes are, we just have to give 2 of them. And we try to stay near 0, 0. Range, if you look at the range, what horizontal lines intersect our graph as we move from bottom to top, is going to be negative infinity to positive infinity. Rarely do they ask you for the domain on tangent graphs, and that's just because the domain has all these asymptotes, and so it's not negative infinity to positive infinity because of these asymptotes. And so you have to say, well, it's negative infinity to positive infinity, but it can't be where all the asymptotes are located. Right, so that's why they usually don't ask for that. All right, so some general things about the tangent graph. Y equals a times tangent, ex minus c plus d, just like the sine and cosine. One difference is the a value does not stand for amplitude. There is no amplitude on a tangent graph. Okay, and that's because amplitude, if you think of sine and cosine, is the highest point, okay, the distance between the midline and the highest point, or the distance between the midline and the lowest point, right? And in tangent graphs, there is no highest point because it goes on forever, and there is no lowest point because it goes on forever. Right? So that's why there is no amplitude. There's an a value, but there's no amplitude. All right. Period. You do 1 pi divided by b, which is different than sine and cosine. The sine and cosine is 2 pi over b. You got to be careful you don't mix them up. Tangent is only 1 pi over b. To find the asymptotes, we can set whatever is inside the parentheses, doesn't matter what it is, whatever's in there, we set it equal to plus or minus pi over 2. All right, and we'll solve for x. All right, so go ahead and put plus or minus pi over 2. The phase shift, you can do the c over b again, just like we did with sine and cosine. One thing that's nice, once you know what the asymptotes are, it'll create the shift for you, so you don't actually have to shift it. It'll do it for you if you do the ex minus c part equal to plus or minus pi over 2 correctly. Right, it does the shifting. And then the vertical shift, that's your up and down again. So that's the d value, which is your midline. Again, y equals d is the midline. All right, so let's go ahead and answer some of these questions now. All right, so the period, remember, is pi over b, and so b is 2. So in this problem, the period would be pi over 2. All right, to find 2 asymptotes, we're going to set whatever's in the parentheses equal to plus or minus pi over 2. All right, and then we're going to solve for x. All right, so to get x by itself, you have 2 options. Either divide both sides by 2. All right, so you can divide this by 2, that goes away. You divide this fraction by 2, that's fine. You just have to deal with the complex fraction if you do that. Because this is a fraction, instead of dividing by 2, you can also multiply it by the reciprocal, 1/2. Okay, so if we multiply both sides by 1/2, then we get x equals plus or minus pi over 4. All right, so that means there's going to be an asymptote at negative pi over 4 and the other one at positive pi over 4. All right, number 2, period, pi divided by b. So b is 1/2, so be careful. So pi divided by 1/2. So we're dividing by a fraction, which means we can multiply by its reciprocal. So 2 pi. Asymptotes, set x over 2 equal to plus or minus pi over 2. All right, so here to get x by itself, we can multiply both sides by 2. So we'll cross cancel. So we get x equals plus or minus pi. All right, number 3. The b value is 1, so pi divided by 1 is pi. Asymptotes, here we're going to set x plus 2 pi equal to plus or minus pi over 2 again. So we got to get x by itself, so we're going to subtract 2 pi this time over. All right, since we're subtracting, we need a common denominator, so put it over 1. All right, so we need to make the denominators the same. So we can multiply 2 pi over 1 times 2 over 2 to get the denominators the same. So then we have pi over plus or minus pi over 2 minus 4 pi over 2. All right, so now we want to simplify that. All right, so we'll do the positive one first. So what's pi over 2 minus 4 pi over 2? Negative 3 pi over 2. Right, so I'll do it over here. X equals negative 3 pi over 2 is one of the asymptotes. And now we can do the negative one. So negative pi over 2 minus 4 pi over 2 would be what? Negative 5 pi over 2. So that's our two asymptotes located. All right, number 4, pi divided by b. So b in this case is 2 pi. So it's everything directly in front of the x, 2 pi. So we simplify this down to 1/2. All right, our asymptote set 2 pi x equal to plus or minus pi over 2. All right, so just like number 1, we're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal, which is 1 over 2 pi. So that'll cross cancel. All right, so you get x equals plus or minus. I can cross cancel the pi's, and you get 1/4. All right, now let's go ahead and start graphing. All right, so number 5, period, pi divided by 2. Now, when we're graphing tangent graphs, the period, you're not going to actually need to use it in graphing. You can use it to verify that you graphed it correctly, but you don't actually need it to graph tangent graphs. And I'll show you why. All right, so now we've got to find the asymptotes. So we set 2x equal to plus or minus pi over 2. And so here we'll multiply by the reciprocal 1/2. So we get plus or minus pi over 4. There's no phase shift on this because there's no adding or subtracting inside the parentheses. All right, so when we graph tangent graphs, what you're going to do, we have an asymptote at negative pi over 4, another one at positive pi over 4. So they're on either side of the y-axis. So what you're going to do is 2 tick marks to the left and 2 to the right. And the one on the left, the furthest one, is negative pi over 4. Okay, that's where one of the asymptotes are located. The other one's at positive pi over 4. So that's the furthest on the right side. Now we're going to cut those in half to find each of those other tick mark values. So we just multiply by half. So that's going to be pi over 8. And then negative pi over 8. All right, and then there's no vertical shift. All right, so it's going to cross through 0, 0. Now it does have an a value of 3. Okay, it's not an amplitude, but it does stretch this out. All right, so what we're going to do is start from our midline right here on this pi over 8. We're going to go up 3 and put a dot because the graph is going to go up on the right and then go down on the left. And then you go to the left one and down 3. All right, so then sketch the graph. All right, and then our range is negative infinity to positive infinity. Bless you. All right, so this is where the period you can kind of see comes in. If you look at the distance between negative pi over 4 and positive pi over 4, you add that distance together, that's what the period is, pi over 2. Okay. Also, if you took pi over 2 and multiply it by a half, you get pi over 4. All right, number 6. All right, so our period pi divided by b, so that's pi over 4. Our asymptotes at 4x equal to plus or minus pi over 2. Okay, so here we're going to multiply by 1/4. And so that's plus or minus pi over 8. Again, there's no phase shift on this. All right, so we'll go 2 tick marks to the left, 2 to the right. Get our asymptotes in there, negative pi over 8 and positive pi over 8. Okay, we'll multiply each of those by a half to find the other value of the middle tick mark. So that's pi over 16, negative pi over 16. Our asymptotes. All right, so now we look at the A value for our graph. So we have a negative in front. So that means it flips over the x-axis. So now it's going to go up on the left, down on the right. The A value is a half. So from this first tick mark value, we're going to go up a half. Okay, and then the other one on the right side, we're going to go down a half. And then it's going to cross through 0, 0. All right, so then when we connect them, and then the range, negative infinity to positive infinity. All right, so number 7. All right, so we'll go pi divided by b. B is pi, so this simplifies to 1. Our asymptotes at pi x equal to plus or minus pi over 2. So solving for x, we can multiply both sides by 1 over pi. And so that's going to be plus or minus 1/2. Again, there's no phase shift. There is a vertical shift on this. It's up 1, which means our midline is y equals positive 1 now. All right, so we're going to go 2 tick marks to the left, negative a half, 2 to the right, positive a half. All right, we'll multiply each of those by a half, so that's 1/4 and negative 1/4. All right, our midline is at y equals 1, so the whole graph's going to shift up 1 unit. All right, so let's put our 3 dots in there. So it's going to cross at the midline and the y-axis. That's our middle one. All right, we have an A value of 3, so from our midline and this first tick mark on the right, we're going to go up 3 units and put another point. All right, we know the graph's going to go up on the right and down on the left. So we go to the right 1, go up 3, put a dot. We're going to go left 1, go down 3, put a dot. and then our range negative infinity to positive. All right, so number 8. All right, pi divided by 1 is pi. All right, so here we'll set x plus pi over 2 equal to plus or minus pi over 2. So here we're going to subtract pi over 2 over. All right, so when we do positive pi over 2 minus pi over 2, what is that? 0. And when we do negative pi over 2 minus pi over 2, it's going to be negative 2 pi over 2, which simplifies to negative pi. All right, so this does have a phase shift. Remember C over B, so it'd be pi over 2. And because it's a plus in the inside, the opposite is minus, which means it's shifting left. All right. We don't actually have to do the shift because the asymptotes actually already do the shift for us. There's no vertical shift here, so that's none. Our range is, we could throw that in there now because we already know what it's going to be. All right, so now let's go ahead and graph this. So we have an asymptote at 0, so that's right on the y-axis, that's 0. And then we have another one at negative pi. So what we're going to do is go 4 tick marks to the left. That fourth one, you're going to put negative pi. Now, the period in between each cycle is pi units. So you can see there's going to be another asymptote at positive pi, another one at positive 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi. So every pi units, there's another asymptote within that graph. Okay? We only have to give one cycle. Okay, so we'll just give these. All right, so let's see. So we have this middle one. There's no vertical shift, so we know it's going to cross through the x-axis right there at the middle one. All right, so we need to label each of those tick mark values. All right, so half of negative pi is negative pi over 2. Half of negative pi over 2 is negative pi over 4. And then 3 times negative pi over 4 is negative 3 pi over 4. All right, so now we'll put our dots in there. It's going to cross through the middle one. Our a value is 1, so that just means that we're going up 1 on the right and down 1 on the left. Connect them. Right, so if we wanted to extend and do 2 cycles of this graph, okay, it'd be easy to just extend it to the right. We just put 4 tick marks to the right. Use 2 pi, because that's the next one. You can label each one. All right, so let's do this last one. All right, so the period pi divided by 2 is pi over 2. Our asymptotes, we're going to set at 2x minus pi over 2 equal to plus or minus pi over 2. And then we'll solve this. All right, so add pi over 2 over first. All right, so I'm going to kind of run out of room, so I'll do it up here. So I'm going to set 2x equal to each of these values that I'm going to get, because they're both going to be different. All right, so I'll do the positive one first. So what's 1 pi over 2 plus 1 pi over 2? 2 pi over 2, which simplifies to pi. Okay, so that's pi, and we'll solve it. We're going to be dividing by 2 to get x by itself. So then we have another one, 2x equals. Now we'll do the minus one, the subtraction. All right, so the negative 1 pi over 2 plus pi over 2 is what? 0. 0, right. All right, so then we'll solve each of those. So we're just dividing by 2 now. Divide by 2. So we get x equals positive pi over 2. That's one of the asymptotes. And then the other one is x equals 0. That's the other asymptote. All right, so then we can go ahead and put those in there. So we have one asymptote at 0, which is the y-axis. Another one at positive pi over 2, so we're going to go 4 tick marks to the right. Pi over 2. All right, and then there's your asymptote. All right, let's describe our phase shift just so we don't forget. We've already done the phase shift. That's what the asymptotes did. All right, it already shifted it. We can already see it's shifting to the right. All right, so you have to do C over B. So C is pi over 2. We're going to divide that by the B value, or the B values, which is 2 over 1, which is pi over 2 times the reciprocal, which is pi over 4. So it's shifting it pi over 4 to the right. So that's what this did. Vertical shift is none. Range negative infinity to positive infinity. All right, so then let's label each of those tick mark values. So we take pi over 2, multiply it by a half, so that's pi over 4. Multiply pi over 4 times a half, that's pi over 8. Take pi over 8, multiply by 3, 3 pi over 8. All right, so using our x-axis, the middle one is where it's going to cross. Okay, so it crosses right there at pi over 4. We have an a value of negative 2, right? So we know it's going to reflect over the x-axis. It's going to go up on the left, down on the right. And that means we have to go 2 units above the x-axis and 2 units below.